Welcome to Law Potato, hot legal topics with Idaho values.
Welcome back to Law Potato, hot legal topics with Idaho values with Alan Harrison of AlanRHarrisonLaw. Alan works with families across Idaho who create thoughtful estate plans and navigate guardianship and special needs planning. Today, he's joined by guardianship specialist Amy Minzghor. I'm Leanne Lyon, and today we're talking about what happens legally when a child with disabilities turns 18 in Idaho and what families should prepare for before that milestone arrives. Hello, Alan. Hi, Amy.
Hi.
Amy, since this is our first time meeting you, can you share a little bit about your background and what attracted you to working with guardianship?
Sure. So my name is Amy, and my husband and I are originally from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and we have 9 children. And we've adopted 5 of our children, and we had legal guardianship of our granddaughter for 10 years also. And when we moved to Eastern Idaho 10 years ago, we didn't have a support system in place. And so I had to reach out, and the other special needs parents in this area became my tribe. And through that process, I got involved with mental health advocacy work, and which naturally ended up leading into the work that I do here with Alan and our team. In fact, I met our team members through the advocacy work that I've done with my children. So I'm eternally grateful for them and all they've done to help my family. And I love helping other families go through this process and calm their fears.
Why does turning 18 create such a significant legal shift, even if a young adult still needs support?
So to answer your question, Leanne, with regards to when someone turns 18 in Idaho, they become a legal adult. And as a legal adult, the law looks at them and says they can make their own decisions in their life. And if someone else is going to be making those decisions for them, then they need to have designated someone else to do that through powers of attorney, or the court has needed to have made a determination that they're unable to make their own decisions and that they need to have a guardian in effect. And that all happens when they turn 18 and become a legal adult.
So what rights do parents no longer automatically have once their child reaches adulthood?
Parent loses their authority in the eyes of the law to make decisions for their child, whether it be medical decisions, school decisions, mental health, or legal matters.
What are the legal tools available at that point, such as powers of attorney or guardianship? And how do families know which path fits their situation best?
So in Idaho, we can use either powers of attorney or guardianship to help someone who needs help after they turn 18. And in order to determine which one we use, we look at really what's the ability of the individual who's now turned 18. We look at can they make decisions on their own? Do they advocate for themselves? We look at what happens at doctors' meetings. Do they typically talk to the doctor and help make medical decisions on their own? What happens at their IEP meetings? Are they a participant in those meetings? Meaning, do they actively participate, or do they just kind of sit on the side and nod, and whatever their parents choose, that's what they go with? Or do they not even show up at the IEP meetings? The more that an individual can advocate for themselves and help make decisions, the more we're leaning towards a power of attorney. That being said, if an individual is living in the home, then often we'll go more towards a power of attorney also if they can advocate for themselves. If a person is going to go outside of the home and can advocate for themselves, then we're going with a power of attorney. If they're living outside the home and they can advocate for themselves somewhat, but could easily be taken advantage of or persuaded, whether that's by someone at the facility or like another person living at the facility or by providers at the facility, then that's, if they can be manipulated or persuaded, then that's when we're looking more at a guardian conservatorship. And that's where you have a court order that authorizes someone else to be making those medical and financial decisions. There is another process called supported decision-making that allows the individual to choose others to get access to information to help them make decisions. But in a crisis, that those documents don't apply. And so in a crisis, you're really looking at whether we have powers of attorney that authorize someone else to make decisions, or we have a guardianship that authorizes someone else to make those decisions.
So, Amy, how early should families begin preparing for that transition?
We suggest families to start when their child is 17. That way it gives them enough time to gather all the documentation that is required. One of the significant forms of documentation that we need is an adult IQ and adaptive behavior assessment, which can both be found in an eligibility report. Otherwise, we would need them to get new testing done. We also need a medical social history form and a current health and physical. Some of these documentations can be received through Liberty Healthcare if their child is currently enrolled in DD services.
The other reason we like to start there is because they also need to do a criminal background check and take some online trainings. And so those are a process and they take some time to get those back. And so we like to get those going.
Especially if there's parties that are from out of state, it does make the process longer.
So, how does this transition intersect with SSI or Medicaid eligibility?
So with the SSI and Medicaid, a lot of clients, depending on the parent's income, they may have already been on that prior to 18. Once they turn 18, they're going to need a transition from the minor services to the adult services. For those that are not on SSI or Medicaid before they're 18, then they're usually applying for that when they turn 18. And they're separate processes, but to do the Social Security, you're going to need an adult psychological evaluation. And so a lot of times you'll be using the adult psychological evaluation that we need for the guardianship. You'll also be using that for the SSI. So they're different processes, but they are happening at about that same time as your child's turning 18.
So, what concerns or misunderstandings do families have as their child approaches 18?
Sometimes parents don't understand that when their child turns 18, that they can no longer make decisions for them, whether it be in school or medical decisions. And that also includes whether or not the child is still in school. Sometimes they think, well, I can make the decisions until they've graduated high school. And that's just not the case. It's when they turn 18. Another thing that people need to understand, if they have a minor guardianship of a loved one, that also automatically terminates when they turn 18. And so if they want to continue to help that person and they need a guardian, they will have to go through the process of getting a permanent guardianship in place.
And just a quick example on that. I had a mom, she was in her 60s or 70s. She had a 40-year-old Down syndrome boy, and he needed a pretty significant surgery. And the doctors wouldn't perform it until she got a guardianship. And when she came into my office, she says, I don't understand. I've been his mom my whole life. I've always made decisions for him. We haven't had any issues. Why do I need to get a guardianship? I'm the mom. And I says, well, he's been 18 and providers and others have allowed you to continue to make those decisions. But this one, the doctors just don't feel comfortable that he has the capacity to consent for you to do that. And so they want you to get a guardianship. And so we went through that process and she was appointed guardian. And then now she had the legal authority to consent to the guardianship and the doctors, or to the surgery. And the doctors felt comfortable going forward and performing that.
Thanks for sharing that story. Stories are really illuminating that way too. So, how can families balance protection with independence as their child moves into adulthood?
Yeah, so the law requires, even if you're appointed as a guardian, the law requires that you allow them to make as many decisions as possible. And so the family and the individual and their support team, the counselors, doctors, agencies that they're working with, they really need just to work together and determine what are the capabilities of this individual and allow that individual to make as many decisions as they can on their own, but to have that support network for decisions that they can't make or that they need someone else to support. They need the support from someone else that they can step in and help them move forward.
So, as we're wrapping up here, and from your experience working with families in Idaho, What tends to make this transition feel more steady and more manageable for the people involved?
Families time and time again have expressed that working with our team with lived experience has made all the difference for them. They recognize that we meet them without any judgment. We have a lot of empathy and compassion for what they're going through because we understand it. And we are able to calm their fears and anxiety because we walk them through each stage. We tell them what to anticipate and how to prepare, and that seems to really help families.
And a lot of these families are overwhelmed. They have a special needs child that's turning 18. They're hearing about guardianship, certified family home, transitioning with Medicaid and Social Security, and they just have a lot on their plate. And we don't address all of those, but we want to provide them peace and guidance and clarity with regards to the piece that we do with respect to allowing the parents to make decisions, whether that's through a power of attorney or guardianship. And Amy, because of her lived experience with this, has really helps provide that clarity that they need. And I've been doing guardianships for over 18 years at this point, and know the process, know the judges and the clerks. And so we're just able to bring peace and clarity with regards to what they can expect as they go forward.
And ultimately, our families walk away knowing that their families are just as important as ours.
I love that. So not only do they get people who care deeply, but they also have people who know the system really, really well. And that makes all the difference. So planning ahead for a child's transition into adulthood can bring clarity and stability during a meaningful life milestone. To learn more about guardianship and special needs planning in Idaho, visit ALanRHarrisonLaw.com. And if this episode was helpful, please like, subscribe, and leave a review, and share it with somebody who needs to hear it. Thank you, Alan. Nice to meet you, Amy.
Thanks,
you. Leanne.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.